we go. All right. Oh, yeah, look at him. You got to fight him on the surface.
What I like to do is take an RC jig from Northland Fishing Tackle.
Get the shiner after the fish attacked it. Hook 'em weedless style.
This puppy wanted a jigging size sucker minnow. Yeah, sucker minnow.
Welcome to the Bro Road Show on the water. Did everybody have a good opener weekend here in Minnesota? Thanks for tuning in. And I know they had good fishing in Wisconsin last weekend. And, of course, to the west. They never close, so that's not fair. But anyway, I hope you had a wonderful weekend. The wind blew, and it was pretty crazy. But we want to bring you tips and tricks from all over the Midwest. And how you doing, Chris? Good to see you. I'm glad you're here. And Chris really wrecked him on Cass Lake Chain. I can't say exactly where, but he was somewhere over there. And the reports are coming in from all over the place. It's been really good. Hey, Chris Berglund, good to see you. Tony, thanks for tuning in. I got reports from Ottertail Lake was fantastic, and that's a walleye factory over there. And already getting them on crankbaits at night and then doing extremely well. Congratulations to Kendra Michelle. Thank you for tuning in, and congratulations on that prize pack you won last week. There's another one tonight. So for those of you tuning in, get ready. And don't just tune in at the end. We got some superstars tonight, legends of northern Minnesota. We have Josh Bullivant, and he is, I probably don't need to introduce him, but he's guided in Ely. He's done the canoe, backpack, way out in the middle of nowhere stuff, Mille Lacs, Leech Lake. And we also got Carl Adams, high-scoring tournament pro winner, always in the top, and a very competitive, but also owns Timberline Sports and Black Duck. And don't blink when you're going through Black Duck. You'll miss the town, which is really nice. We like small towns. And he is a guide, and his whole life is fishing, man. So these are going to be some great guests tonight. And, let's bring in Sam, my co-host, because things are getting really good now. And you don't need this show anymore. It's getting good. I mean, we don't have time because it's time to fish. How you doing, Sam? How was the fishing?
I'm doing great. And yes, it has been awesome to get on the water finally. I had a great opener, got out, did lots of different things. So it was fun.
Yeah, so you had a good opener. And what was the hot Northland Fishing Tackle bait?
Yep. So I actually started out on Saturday on Lake Plantagenet, and I was kind of in the grocery aisle. No big ones, but lots of eaters.
There you go.
They weren't jumping in the boat, but I got my fish. You can see there. I can't show you exactly what I was using because I was testing out a new prototype we're working on.
I like that.
Yep. But lots of eaters. I got my fish. It was a good time, good bite. A little challenging in the wind. I definitely enjoyed my spot lock. I ended up just getting on a nice break line that the wind was blowing right down. Spot locked, pitched my jig down, and brought it back to the boat. And that's how I got most of my fish on jigs and shiners. That new jig we're trying out, as well as the Deep V jig.
I love that one.
Yep.
That was fantastic for me too. And thanks for tuning in, Ken Clark. And also Chris Berglund is a pro. Good to see that you're here, soon to be a champion in those tournament series. But it was very interesting. And what did you hear about Bemidji? Did you hear anything? Or because that's a big lake, we could pick on it. And anything over in that area?
Yep. I heard a little bit about Sunday, and I think Bemidji directly, and it seemed like a lot of the Bemidji area that you were either catching them or you weren't. I think the fish are really piled up in specific areas, and you either had a good day on the water or you had a little trouble finding them. So that's kind of the Bemidji bite, but again, that sounds like the whole Bemidji area as well. But people were catching fish, lots of photos, saw lots of people out, so it was great. So that was my Saturday was walleye fishing. And then Sunday I creeped out for some bass. And again, it was Surprisingly,
smallmouth.
yep, that was actually from today. We'll talk a little bit about that too. But it wasn't quite as good as I thought it would be. They're still catching fish, but a lot of those cruisers that were just cruising the flats, not interested in eating. So I caught most of my fish swimming a jungle jig. So jungle jig with a swim bait trailer, pitching it out along the cattail edges and reeling it in. I also caught some on the balsa or Bagley balsa wake. That was another really good bait for me. And I think I caught a few more fish a little farther off the edge with that bait, some of those cruisers. And then finally, while I was doing that, I found out it was really important. Again, goes back to that grocery shopping, to have a gypsy jig and a bobber rigged up, because with those bass, the crappies were cruising, and I ran into a few of those as well. So no bait, just pitched the jig out, had it on the deck when I saw them swimming by, and caught a
Awesome.
fish. So nothing big, but some good little eaters, and it was fun. A lot of different species this weekend. It was good. And then today, as you can notice, I'm in a little different background. I'm actually
I noticed that. Where are you?
Yeah, I'm staying at my in-laws here in Nisswa because I was down on Mille Lacs today, and we'll be back there again tomorrow. So I'm staying the
How's
night
Mille Lacs going?
It was tough today, but we ended up getting some fish. So sounds like over the weekend, fish are getting caught. A little slower for us today, but right as I had to leave to make it here in time for the show, 2 passes, caught fish right in the same area. So I wish I could have stayed there a little bit longer. But I got a nice walleye, one the keeper sized range.
In the slot?
Yep.
All
So
right.
you can keep one fish 21 to 23 inches, I believe, right now.
Yeah.
And then my buddy Joey, he caught a nice, probably 27 incher too. And then, as you can see, we had some really fun smallmouth mixed in there too. So it was a little tougher today, but we were out there with Brad Hawthorne. He said he's been catching fish over the weekend, and it's only going to get better and better as the water gets warmer out there. So again, the wind has made it tough this whole opening weekend.
That's a brutal lake to be on.
Yep. So
well,
it'll get better.
So Joey upstaged you again. You're fishing with him, and he got the bigger walleye. What the heck?
I know, but I caught those 2 at the end, so he was starting to get a little antsy at the end. I don't know if they stayed out there or not. I'll have to text them here and after the show to see if they got any more. But
I seen on a report there down in Madison, the panfish are starting to go. That's great to hear. I had a report come in, like I said, from a good friend and a writer over out west in Otter Tail lit up, but he likes going on at night. There's no traffic, and he's pulling Rumble series cranks, Rumble shiners in shallow, and he's just smacking them. And so it's really good. I like that, Chris. Good idea. Slip bobbers are working good. And so Heather and I did something different this year, and we've opened on red. We've opened on Lake of the Woods, because opener is kind of a sacred tradition in Wisconsin and Minnesota, but here, never been to Rainy Lake on the opener. I've been to Lake of the Woods. And Rainy Lake, the ice went out the day before, and I was out there fishing with some good fellas there, Jeff Hamilton and Ponyak, and another Jeff and Scott, and I don't know Jeff's and Scott's last name, but those guys are in the bass tournaments up there, and there's a picture right there, and you can see how picturesque it really is up there. And we had sunshine before the big downpour came in. There's Jeff Hamilton. Everybody knows Hammy. Catching walleyes, in the water is 37.8 degrees when we went. Unbelievably cold, but great eater factory. I thought the lake was closed. There was nobody anywhere. You didn't see anybody. We were having a great time. And it was an upbite, a slow upbite, so you didn't want to jig too hard in that kind of temperature, but the fish were chomping. What a great place to be. I heard they're getting them pitching. We were vertical, staying over them, and they hadn't moved up yet, so it was awesome. And I was using deep V jigs. That was really hot for us right there. And there you don't need spot tail shiners. All you need are fatheads. But that was fantastic and slow moving. And watch out, because your jig disappears and you got a fish. And Rainy Lake is so picturesque, and it was really nice. And I like to try somewhere different all the time. and that was an eater thing. We didn't get much for bigs there, but I got a report too from Red today that the fish are extremely girthy for their size, and there's males up to just under 22 inches being caught. So those are giant male walleyes, and they're just pounding them. And I'm hearing that they're catching them right in the river. And, as you get out farther into the lake, there's still fish. So you don't have to be on top of each other. There's plenty of room up there, and super busy, but now it's kind of thinned out. So a great place to be. Our depths were a little bit deeper up at Rainy, and jig and cadence, I wouldn't even call it a cadence. It's like a drag, but you have to move it a little bit to let them know it's there. So it's just a short hop. And I was using a St. Croix Legend X, and this thing is really nice in the wind. I love that 7-foot rod, and I was all tied up with a deep V and medium light, so they could actually pull on the rod tip a little bit, and then you pop them. Great time. So I want to talk about double hooking a shiner. People love this, and I actually have a spot tail, and I got this from Carl Adams is going to be up a little later, but I got this from his store, and here is a shiner. You can see them. So they're a long minnow, and walleyes typically grab the tail part here, and so we lose a lot of walleyes. They intend on eating it, but they're in the killing phase. So if I go in the minnow here, you can come out the gill like that. Let me center it. Push the jig up, then turn, and you put it in. But I'm kind of a caveman here. I come out the middle because I jig so hard I'd lose them if I just went through the gill. Then I push the collar of the jig in, and this is a long shank fireball, and then turn, and I put it in like this. Now, here's the thing. That minnow is weedless. That's a weedless minnow right now. You could throw that in the rocks anywhere, unless your jig head gets wedged. That's going to go right through. But sometimes if I'm not in weeds, I'll tip the point out. We call that tipping, where you just have the tip of the point coming out. Mm-hmm. And that's a weedless hooked shiner minnow, and you can do that on a deep V. There's just enough gap. So
that was the reason I was using the deep V and our new prototype that's got a similar hook configuration. Is the first few fish I caught, I was struggling a little bit away in the morning before the wind kicked up, and eventually I started pitching into the pencil reeds. And if I did not have that shiner double hooked with your method, I could not get that jig out of the pencil reeds. But as soon as I did that and started pitching into the pencil reeds, the first few fish that went in my box came from doing that. So,
and that's the thing too, is there's a lot of anglers that don't fish the bulrushes, the pencil reeds.
Yep.
And that's a hard bottom area. They grow in hard bottoms. And I just want to tell everybody it's different this year than it is in past years. And some of the fish are hyper shallow. The water's darker. We have bog runoff. It's not a normal year, but it's a fantastic year. I like lots of water, which means lots of fish. So you can see I got a leech crawling on me here. So when I'm hooking a leech, I like to use short shank fireball. You can see how short that shank is, because you don't need a lot of hardware on a jig like that. You have the big wire. Even though it doesn't spook the fish, it just flows better to hook a leech on that. So what I do is I don't just go through the sucker. I go through the sucker and thread it back. So I'm back into the leech a little bit, and they'll straighten out when you start casting them out. But that will stay on there. And walleyes, absolutely love this setup. And this is a proven tournament winner. And you can see there's a leech, but they're fragile. Here's the thing on Red Lake. Here's a little tip for the people listening. Thanks for listening. So I'm going to throw this at you. I use what I call leech's pieces, walleye candy. And so you snip them up and you use them in pieces. And they don't go, oh, hey, wait a minute. That leech, that's only a part of a leech. Don't bite on that. They absolutely crush it. And I've had 8 fish and 8 casts behind my back with a leech's pieces. So there you go, right there. Fireball. That's a stand-up fireball too. So when it lands like that. Great bait. And I'm going to use that minnow and that leech after we're done tonight. I have some great shore spots. I have 13 bridges and shore spots near me. So my best boat control is off a bridge. And believe me, everybody will be gone. Actually, I shouldn't say anything because he might stay now, but that is a great bite. So, some of the key things when you're fishing the opener. Let's come back to that. I want to say I'm bringing in a soon-to-be legend. I will see him in a Hall of Fame if I live long enough because I'm old. But anyway, let's bring on Josh Bullivant. Sam, he's a great guy here.
Josh
Josh,
is awesome.
are you with us?
I'm
There
with
he
you guys.
Hey, Josh. How's
Hey,
it
how's
going?
it going? It's going good.
He's in a Lund boat right now, and that's a cool thing. He's part of the Lund family. Josh is in. Hey, Brant, how you doing? He's got his son there.
Yep.
All right. I'd like to see that. But what do you use for Lund? Tell people about the Lund boat you're using first, Doll.
So I like to do a lot of duck hunting as well as fishing. So I actually have the Lund Alaskan. So it's got now the nice thing with Lund Alaskan, it's got 150 mercury on it. You can see back here, I also got my Talon. I use that all the time.
Love that. Love
For
that.
sure.
I know I like tails.
But since I'm on Leech Lake, the 20 footers definitely what you'd want out here. It can handle
Yeah.
the big waves. I've been caught numerous times, especially with the wind the last year out in it, and it handles the waves just like any of their other series. It's Lund tough. It's built for that, and I can pull it up on the rocks when we're duck hunting, and it's a just great overall for everything boat.
You don't worry about it. You just pull right up on the rocks.
Yeah, and it's got a whole. What they did on mine is they put an extra keel guard on it, so I got a little bit of extra aluminum on that keel.
That's fantastic. So now Josh manages Trapper's Landing, so he's on the south end of Leech all the time, but he's guided in the boundary waters. Yeah, he's the guy that carried the canoe and all this stuff like a Voyager and took people in there, and he's guided on Mille Lacs. Talk about two different worlds. And now you're guiding on Leech, but you're doing surrounding areas. But people are dying to know, how did Leech go?
Leech started off a little bit slow on Saturday morning, but as the day picked up and the air temperature and everything warmed up, the bite definitely picked up. So anglers were coming into the fish cleaning here at Trappers with plenty of keeper fish out there. So a nice part is a lot of those fish were, you get the 1/20 up here. So you get the 4 fish with the 1/20. A lot of, it was good to see a lot of like 16 to 18-inch fish being caught out there. They did start finding them. They were out a little bit deeper, I think, than what people were first anticipating. So they were more in the 7 to 12 foot range.
Oh, great information. See, that's why we tune in, because you never know. And there we got someone. Jared wants to come to Leech, but definitely get a hold of Josh for guide service or stay at Trapper's Landing. He'll take care of you. It's a great destination, and I've been out of there many times. And so there you go. Look at carrying on the tradition with your kids. So Josh is also married and a father of 4 kids, and he's doing all this. That's fantastic. Good to see that you got kids and you're getting them involved in fishing.
They love it. And there's a picture of Brant. He was out with me today, and you guys saw him earlier. He's out running around the docks right now. We're in the marina. This is his favorite time of year to fish, is because he can catch a whole bunch of them from shore and from the docks, which is really fun.
Well, that's a giant marina there, Trappers. Could you show people with the camera?
Yeah.
Hope it doesn't mess it up.
We'll pick it up here. You guys can see right in the background there. Right, we're under construction, so we're building a whole bunch of new docks. There's one of our rental pontoons. So, and then maybe you can see it in the sun there. You can see all the excavators and all of that. So we're dredging it out right now and built a whole bunch of brand new docks for this year. So everyone, when they're coming and visiting, we're going to have all brand new docks and brand new dredged out marina.
Oh, fantastic.
It was nice before. Now it's going to be super nice.
Yeah. It'll
I'm
be
saying,
well lit and everything.
Josh, what were you using this weekend?
So historically right now, usually jig bite. I like the RZ jigs. I downsized a little bit to the 16th ounce out there, but glow watermelon's always a hot one. And then of course, chartreuse lime are great ones to use with the minnows. But one of the things that I think people overlooked out here, right from shore right now, crankbaits worked better than the jig and minnow bite, believe it or not. This past
I recognize that one.
So,
which one is that, Sam?
That's the Rumble Shiner, right?
Yep. And this one's caught more fish this weekend right offshore than any of our guys out in the boat. So evening time, overnight time, a lot of our guests were catching them right from shore and just walking along our docks, catching fish with these.
That's great to know. And that's Leech Lake. So that little tip kind of goes around the whole thing. And Leech Lake, it has shallow bays. It has super deep bays. And and so it's got all different types of bites. And what is the temperature there now?
Right now on our end, I just got back in. It was 53 degrees already.
Wow.
So it warmed up significantly. Ice went out May 9th, and 53, and that jumped a couple degrees. I think that warmer water from the north with the north wind warmed it up here about 5 degrees in the last 2 days.
That's super awesome. And then when I'm on leech, I'm always using AquaView. I always have one packed. I have the HD7, and I'm going to like the 722. If anybody wants to know, go to AquaView, and you could see the 722. It's available, and it's on their website. Super cool technology, and all of us use AquaView, and all the tournament pros use AquaView. You got to check it out. But I know you use it.
I use it a lot, especially Leech Lake right now. Unfortunately, it had zebra mussels in it, so it cleared up significantly. So I know during the ice season, having them underneath all of our ice houses have the AquaViews in them. And then in the summertime, I use it. Definitely, you can see a long ways right now and scout out those rock lines and sand rock transitions, what you're looking for right now. And it definitely helps you find those. So I use that all the time when I'm out on the lake.
And Sam, they got a fit. He's got fish that you like over there too.
I know. So I was just gonna say, my dad's coming up next weekend, so I might have to hit you up for some spots because I think we're gonna try to spend a day on leech. But one thing we want to do is chase after the smallies down there, and they've been growing and growing and growing. So tell us a little bit about the smallmouth fishing.
So that's kind of the hidden secret, I think, in the state right now. I know Mille Lacs gets a lot of notoriety when I was down there catching them. Ely's got some great ones. Down on our end of the lake is where I think they kind of originated with the smallmouth bass. You can go out right now in any of the rock piles right near Trapper's Landing Lodge. So we got a couple, to name a few, right out in front. They are hanging out a little bit. They're just starting to move up onto the shallows right now on those rock bars and the marinas. But we're finding fish. Last year we caught, let's see, Brant, I think his biggest was 22 inches, which is a giant smallmouth.
That's huge.
Yeah, and some of those bass guys that are in here that fish the tournaments, they actually come over here because they're starting to find those 18 to 20 inch averages out here.
That's fantastic. And now smallmouth bass, their number one forage, because they did a study on it. They studied on Mille Lacs, and the DNR will tell you, and a lot of us, they cough up crayfish. I never see them cough up any walleyes or any of that stuff. And so they're perfectly great to have in a lake. Just a great sport fish. Not really good for eating, but just a super fun fish. So that's really good to see that we have another sport fish in the lake.
Yeah, and they're very low pressured, so multiple techniques work very, very well with those fish.
When we're in Minnesota, and someone just wondered what state, we're in Minnesota talking to Josh. He's on Leech Lake out of Trapper's Landing. And so great place to be. Huge smallies, but there's huge largemouth bass also, and kind of
there's huge everything in Leech, I think.
Huge everything, but the lake is huge too. So if you do come there, hopefully you got a boat that can get you around. But you could drive around too. No matter where you stay, there's accesses throughout the lake, and so some areas are rocky, some are weedy. So and Josh, you're a troller quite a bit. You've trolled every lake there is. When do you start trolling hardcore during the day?
Hardcore during the day. I usually, after the bug hatch that happens especially out here on Leech Lake, seems like once those mayflies hatch is when I start to switch over to the trolling bite. So that's about the end of June, right after 4th of July week. And I'll troll until about mid-August, even mid-September on our end of the lake. I do use a lot of lead core. I like to troll the outer edges and cover the water, and then out in the basins. A lot of those bigger walleyes tend to roam out in those basins on our end. But you don't need to go as deep as what you think that lead core would pull. I'm usually only doing 2 or 3 colors at most.
Oh, that's really interesting. And Leech Lake also has jumbo perch. Are you seeing any this time of year?
Yes, we had a whole bunch of guys out in the same spots they were pitching for jigs and minnows. The jumbo perch are definitely mixed in with them. We saw a great spring bite, and that population's coming back across the lake, especially our end. We're starting to see some really nice jumbos come into the cleaning shack, and a lot of people are also filling their live wells with their walleyes right in the same spots. So
that's very interesting. And Leech is a hard one to kind of know what's going on. Fish kind of disappear, and then they show up in huge numbers. and it's such a big mysterious lake in that regard, and it's not an ABC thing to figure out. But that lake is always full of fish, and they just kind of disappear and come back, and that lake has giant perch. How big a perch are you seeing coming in?
The biggest we had somebody bring in was 12 3/4 this past weekend, which is a good one.
Oh, really?
Yeah, really, really good. It seemed like the average size was anywhere between 10 to 12 right now. So we had which were really, really nice. They're fat fish, very healthy fish right now. Biggest one I've seen out of the lake is over 14 inches.
Wow, that's fantastic. And leech, we don't want to push it too hard, but I love my crappies and bluegills. That is another big factory, though it's not the highest population. I think it's only, a small percentage, but a small percentage on a gigantic lake is big, but it has big crappies and big bluegills.
It definitely does. And I love that they finally put on that 5 fish up here. That's going to definitely help keep that trophy fishery for sure alive for a long time.
And there's some big crappies. I mean, they get 2-pounders and even bigger, so I know that. I've actually seen them up to 17.5 on that lake, which is super fantastic. And so Trappers Landing has how many cabins?
We currently have, what do we got? 14, 16, 19 cabins. And let's see if I can get a good picture of it behind me here. You can kind of see in my background there, we're building three more sets of those townhomes. Right. Wow. 6 more brand new 3-bedroom townhomes that'll be open here shortly. So they're going to match all of our high-end stuff. They'll be fully loaded with everything you want. Dish network. We even got fiber in for Wi-Fi now, so everybody will be able to do those work vacations, come up and enjoy the beautiful view we have. We got some of the best sunrise views because we do face east here, so you get to come up over.
And that place, I mean, Sam, his cabins are bigger than my house.
I know it's not your typical northern Minnesotan hunky-dunk cabins. They are top-notch facilities there. I've been down there, lucky to been down there a couple times for some sales meetings and whatnot, and it's a beautiful place you guys have there.
Wow. Yeah, thank you. The owners, they also own Reed Sporting Goods. They do a great job with everything. They know exactly what our guests want, and of course they've got always good quality guys, gear, everything that you need too. So owners have done a lot for everything. They've done a lot for me working for them. So they just keep expanding it and adding to Trappers Landing Lodge to make sure it stays that elite experience on the lake.
We just had a viewer ask, does it fill up really fast there?
We do fill up. We fill up really, really fast. You got to book at least a year out to get your spot. We're already full for the July timeframe right now, but these new townhomes open August 1st, and the phone is ringing to rent those right now.
That's good. Get on that, everybody out there. If you want to go fish that part of Leech, and it's now as far. Josh is also a guide. You're a busy dude, man. So if anybody wants to go with Josh will show you Leech. He'll take you out and show you a good time, and he knows all the different species of fish there. And definitely give him a shout. So what's on the menu now? What are you going to go for? Are you going to go fishing tonight?
Yeah, we're going to go fishing tonight. Brant's been fishing off the docks right now because he can't wait, but we're going to just head out and fish for some walleyes here right in the evening, basically right outside the marina tonight.
Yeah, someone asked if you rent boats, and you guys you don't just have skiffs there.
We don't. We rent Lund Alaskans, 18-footers and 20-footers. We also have brand new Lund crossovers, 1875 crossovers. They come set up with a Humminbird Helix 9 with the Mega Down imaging, and they have the Terova up front, a 150 Mercury. Nice part is you want to rent that one for your family because we provide all the tubes and skis for free along with that rental. And then also I go in there and physically plug in the waypoints for all the people fishing. So they've got a lot of my fishing waypoints to go with those boats.
That's fantastic. Well, I got to say, we got to keep moving here, but I am so glad you came on. Josh Bullivant, and he has his guide service, and there's Brian, his son, with him. So give him a shout if you're in that area. I know I try to refer him as much as possible. Sam, we got Carl Adams coming up next. Thanks for coming on, Josh. Carl Adams. But before we bring in Carl, I want you to tell people what they have a chance to win.
Yes. Yep. So we have another Northland giveaway going on. Again, it's going to be the Bro Roadshow mug and a bunch of our Deep V jig assortment. So some of the Deep V bucktail and some of the Deep V jigs, the exact same thing. You and me were using an opener. Absolutely awesome jig. So to get entered to win that giveaway, make sure to like, comment, and share the show. That'll get you entered in to win. We will be picking a winner towards the end of the show here. So make sure to like, comment, and share.
And you get the Bro Roadshow mug, but you have to provide the contents. You have to put your own in there. But let's bring on Carl. And tell you what, talk about a Northwoods legend in Minnesota. Everybody knows Carl. Carl's a high finisher in tournaments, but he owns Timberline Sports in Black Duck. I think he owns another gas station up there, but he's a fishing guide and tournament pro. Thanks for coming on, Carl.
Yeah, it's good to see you, bro.
Yeah, and so how was the opener in Black Duck, Minnesota?
We had a pretty nice opener. We had good fishing. A lot of people traveling up to Red Lake. Red Lake had a super bite. It was a little windy. We'd have liked to seen not quite the wind blowing quite so hard, but otherwise fishing was really good.
Gale force, but you're a Lund owner and you got a Lund glass boat, so I would guess that wind doesn't affect you that much, does it?
It doesn't. That glass Lund will handle any big waves. I just fished Black Duck so far, and it not a real big lake. The waves can't get too big for that boat.
Wow, that's I tell you what, in Black Duck, you got hundreds of lakes within 30 miles.
We do. We're really close. We're not that far from Red. We're not that far from Winnie. We're not that far from Leech. Cass, Bemidji, all of those are right in our group, plus lots and lots of little ones.
That's awesome. And Sam, you've heard some good bites there. You go ahead and
Carl, what water depths are the guys catch them in some of the surrounding lakes, and then also Red?
So Red's always really shallow. The fish, a lot of them were actually still staged in the river, and because of the strong wind, a lot of the guys were just sitting in the Tamarack River. I had, by 6 a.m, I had guys fishing from shore coming back saying, "Oh, we caught one every cast till we ran out of bait." It was a super bite right in the Tamarack River. And that's all. It's a pretty shallow river. They're not fishing real deep. And when you get out on the main lake on Red, 6 feet is pretty deep. A lot of the times the really good bite is in 2 to 5 foot. It's a shallow lake and people are fishing shallow. So
that's
our local lakes were out a little bit deeper than I expected. A lot of times on Black Duck, I'll be fishing in that 5 to 8. And I think it was more like 7 to 10 where I found the fish.
Wow. That's kind of deep for this time of year.
Yeah, they just seem like I think that strong wind we had the whole week before kind of just moved the warm water around a little bit, and it seemed like the fish weren't staged right up in the tight to shore like they are a lot of times.
What kind of water temps do you have on the lakes?
So I heard Red was 56. It warms up pretty fast. Black Duck was 51. So we're already seeing some, starting to get in that temperature where the fish start to bite. I usually figure at 52, our bite gets pretty good. And at 51, it wasn't the fastest bite I've seen, but it was a pretty good bite. Lots of nice fish. That 15 to 18 inch fish were real common on the lake.
That's fantastic. And so, Carl, do you have shiners at Timberline Sports?
Well, I think that's one of the big questions, and we haven't ran out yet. We've had the spot tail shiners. We have a guy who traps them off of Upper Red, and we've been able to keep them in stock so far the whole season, and at least for a while to come until they run out.
Well, that's such a staple in walleye fishing in northern Minnesota. But Carl and I, we guide groups together, and we know that we catch a lot of fish on fatheads when we don't have shiners, and you use other stuff too, leeches and crawlers, don't you?
I'll jig a leech, a crawler, a fathead, and a shiner. There are a lot of lakes where shiners are for sure the best, but on Black Duck, I had all of them with, and I think most of my fish just came on a fathead. They like fatheads on Black Duck Lake. Just using a little fireball jig. A lot of times a stand-up fireball, I think, is what I had on the other day. Worked really, really good on that lake. That one right there, you could catch yourself a limit of walleyes with that, bro.
Yeah, that's such a good one. It stands up and holds the minnow up in the air. So as far as is the water still murky. We've had huge winds. Like you describe them as gale force winds every day.
And that has been the case, and the lake was pretty stained. So I thought that might make the fish go a little shallower, but I think for whatever reason they were staged out a little bit further, so they were in that little bit deeper water. But it also means that you can catch some fish in the daytime. Some years it's really clear and it's kind of tough to catch them until right at dark. And so far, people have been able to catch some fish right during the day.
That's awesome. And you know what Carl has as a store, Sam?
Yeah, I say not only do you have bait, you have a huge selection of tackle, snacks, guns, like everything you need. If you guys haven't stopped into Timberline in Black Duck, you need to do so. Carl, tell us what you all have in the store there.
Well, we try to have everything that a person might need. So we're going to have all of the Northland crankbaits. We're going to have every Northland jig that they make. We try to have all of them. We try not to miss any. So we're going to have your gypsy jig if you want to chase crappies, and then we're going to have your 1 ounce heavy gumballs if you wanted to chase stuff on the Rainy River. We try to have a little bit of everything on top of all those new bucktail jigs have been pretty hot. I was amazed how many of those we sold this weekend. I think bucktail jigs are starting to catch on again. They had been kind of forgotten about for a bunch of years, and was just the old timers using them. And all of a sudden now I started seeing a lot of people start to fish with them again. So we try to carry a little bit of everything. We're a full service convenience store with all your snacks and food. Carry everything you need for bait. We're going to have your St. Croix rods. We just have a little bit of everything in there.
That's awesome. They got a great St. Croix rod display. So make sure if you're in the market for rods, talk to Carl, John. Those guys will show you some rods, and they have them right there so you can check them out. And you can get a reel on the rod. They'll spool the line. You can get a pizza. You can get gas there. And he's got black gold, leeches.
Yes, we do.
And a lot of the lakes, this is what I see. A lot of lakes are full of spot tails, but there's lakes like Black Duck and some other lakes in the area. They have populations of golden shiners. They have fatheads in the lake. So fish recognize them. And I think that's one of the things too, is there's a lot of the locals buy just fatheads, don't they, when they come through?
We do. I think a lot of the locals just have always used a fathead and don't worry about the shiners. There are certain lakes where I think a shiner is necessary, but when the bite's really good on red, it probably doesn't matter. And when the bite's on Black Duck is not a lake full of shiners. Most of our other lakes, I think I would pick a shiner over them. But
someone was asking what kind of rod. I got a St. Croix Legend X, and then I've got a Daiwa reel, just because those reels are super light and they never disappoint. And we use them really hard. And I know that St. Croix rod's been tested in machines and by people to be super tough, but those reels are you don't get them back very often, do you?
No, we don't at all. That has become the go-to reel, and that's always been a go-to rod. So
yeah, and also want to mention too, he's got trolling motors, he's got Humminbird, he's got stuff for anything to do with Minn Kota and Humminbird, and of course that stuff sells fast, so you better make sure to check ahead before you go there. Don't just show up and expect a certain model. But you carry all the Humminbird products, and when they don't sell out completely, because it's
right.
so busy.
It's been a tough year getting them, but we still have some left, and that stuff's been trickling in. We get some in here and there, and there's a lot of people looking for it yet because there's a little shortage this year.
Well, and you carry tournament bait, because sometimes I drive from where I'm at to go there to get some creek chubs and redtails, and then he's got a huge display of Gamakatsu hooks, but like these walleye wide gaps and these finesse wide gaps you'll see here, he's got piles of that, and I probably got these there.
I would guess that you did. I know I've sold you some. Yeah.
So, and then someone asked about plastics. Plastics do work, but bait is just good in northern Minnesota because sometimes the fish will sit behind it and they bump it. And I think that's, Sam, you find that out all the time.
Mm-hmm. For sure. Hey, I saw another really good question that came through is, how do you keep your shiners alive longer?
What do you do, Carl?
Well, shiners can't take temperature change. Sometimes people forget about that. They think if I just keep them cold, but they don't take temperature change very fast. So sometimes guys will shock them by putting them in too cold of water when they're in warm, or taking out them really cold water that we keep in our store and putting them without letting them temper a little bit and putting them into, the warmer lake water, because you're already starting to see some of that 50 degrees. But a lot of those new coolers, there's the Angle bait cooler has allowed a lot of people to keep their bait alive. Any kind of aerated cooler that's also insulated so the temperature doesn't change. If you keep them well oxygenated, shiners will actually live a long time.
Oh yeah. Well, someone was asking, do we wash our worms? That was a really good question. I don't like dirt all over my boat, and then you're wearing it. So I just have a little something to dunk it in, like a little Tupperware dish, or something you'd throw away from the microwave. I just take a little lake water and you dip your fingers in, and it doesn't get all over the place. Because if you don't, you could grow plants in your boat, and you don't want that. But the key is it's all temperature thing. And Carl knows that there's different times of the year where the minnows kind of fade a little bit, and it turns into leeches and night crawlers, doesn't it?
It does, and as long as you keep those cool, they're easier to keep alive. So you can keep a nice little cooler and with some ice in it, and keep some leeches and crawlers, and they don't take up a lot of space. And I use them on those same jigs. I use those same Northland. I'll be using a deep V jig with a half of a crawler on them, putting a leech on a little stand-up fireball like you were showing earlier. I'm going to be doing that all summer long. Jig fishing works the year round, and you can catch a lot of fish with them.
Well, that's a nice thing about these hair jigs. What I found out, and from like some of those older guides who started all this stuff, they just put a small minnow on that thing or a chunk of worm, and the hair, it actually looks like the body of a minnow. And I was going to say, I know, Carl, what pound test do you use?
I run 6 pound mono most of the time on all my jig rods. There's times if I go out a little deeper, I do switch to some of the braided line, but 6 pound mono for most of my jig fishing. I occasionally use 4, but sometimes I'm fishing so shallow, I like having 6 just to help it keep it up a little bit.
Sure. And then Sam, what do you use for line?
A lot of times I'm using like a 8 pound braid, but I think that's been a huge learning curve for me. When I started getting more and more into fishing, of how important it is to have the right line out there, because you can go out with, you think they advertise braid, 20 pound braid is the diameter of 8 pound mono or 10 pound mono. So you think, oh, I'll get the 20 pound braid, but you want, I think, as thin of line as you can get away with, because that's really going to help your jig stay on the bottom. Or if you're fishing shallow, like Carl said, help it get off a little bit, but line diameter really affects it, especially in the big winds we've been having. So it's important to keep those lines right.
And then, Carl, do you use a barrel swivel between braid and your line, or with mono to your leader, or do you just tie straight on?
Well, I don't always run and I'm willing to change my line pretty frequently without a barrel swivel if I'm just fishing mono. On my ones I run braid, I do always tie a little swivel, either a little swivel, almost always a little small swivel, and a chunk of fluorocarbon on the end. And a lot of our lakes are ultra clear now. Zebra mussels have got in lakes like Leech and Cass and Winnie, and they've cleared up a lot. And I think that makes a big difference. And if I fish deep, I do like to have some of the braided lines. But this early season jig fishing, I'm usually just mono, straight tied to a jig, and we have a lot of little pike cutting it off. So then we have to change jigs pretty frequently and cut and put some more on.
And then
that's all okay by me.
Yeah,
that's right.
And Sam and Carl know I'm a braid guy. I use Sunline, and I like the SX1 braid. And that 10 pound braid, I mean, if you hook something, you can pull your boat to it, you're snagged because it's so strong. But I need something to break. So I'll get a fluorocarbon. So I go braid to fluorocarbon with a back-to-back uni. And if it's super clear, I'll go to a 10-foot fluorocarbon leader. But I like that hook set. I could just flick my wrist. But Sunline has really been a real good line for me. And but I'm just a braid guy. And mono is awesome. But then I'll lose one fish or something, and then I put that rod away. So everybody's got their thing. So it's braid versus mono, and I think it's whatever you want to use. Don't you agree?
What size leader are you using with your braid? What weight for the fluorocarbon?
Was that for you, bro, or to me?
Yeah, you.
I'm usually running 6 or 8. I'm running usually an 8-pound braid, and I want it to be light enough to break. But in truth, an 8-pound braid will not break as easy as a 8-pound fluorocarbon or anything.
Sure.
So most of the time, it's either that 6 or 8. It's right around that same size on my jig rods.
You just need to have a break point, and it has to be less strength on the leader than it is on the main line, which is a great point for everybody out there. I mean, it doesn't matter how elite or how studied a rod is. If you put wrong force on it, they're not designed for the wrong force or high sticking in braid situations and huge waves. So you got to have a break spot. And I'd rather lose a jig than a tip of a rod. But if you do, Carl can fix it for you, because I've gone there before too for that. So that's really awesome. And so, right now we got game fish open. We got walleyes, northern pike. You can catch and release bass, but there's other critters out there like crappies, bluegills, and perch. Have you heard anything going on, or are they starting to move on any lakes?
Yeah, and I think they are just starting to move shallow on quite a few lakes. I'm actually hoping tomorrow that I'll be able to catch a limit of walleyes quick and then go find some limit of crappies. And the bluegills I haven't heard moving up quite as much yet, but I think we'll see that in the next few days too. Things are already heating up a little bit. Like I said, I've already been out before season and found some crappies. They've moved up into a lot of the shallows already. And we're going to see that only get better in the next couple of weeks where the fishing for the next month of season should be able to catch multiple species in one day. I did actually hear quite a few nice perch getting caught too, which, sometimes once they get done spawning, they slow down a little bit. I think a lot of the perch must not have spawned yet because of the weather, because I've just heard more perch on a various lakes getting caught, and some real nice ones.
Oh, that's just tells you that, ice out perch, usually they spawn right away and they're done. And I found some lakes where they're spawned out, and like you say, some are still holding their eggs, and the males are ready to go. And it's one of those times here. This is kind of like fall, when everything comes together, and it's very soon when that water gets in that 55 to 60, everything's just going crazy haywire. And we wish that this time could last longer, but the bugs are going to hatch. The lakes turn into liquid food everywhere, bugs and so then that slows it down. But this is a magical time, and sounds like we ice fished. How many days ago, Sam, were we on the ice?
It would have been 2 weeks ago today.
2 weeks ago, we were ice fishing.
And now the water is 50 degrees around most lakes. Isn't that crazy?
It's all open now, and the water's getting in that 50-degree range. That's unbelievable how fast things happen. Heavy rains, which are flooding everything. And I think Brooke has a picture somewhere where I was up at Rainy, and the docks, they got barrels on the docks and jugs of water just to hold the docks up. Look at that. And that was from the Thunderbird. We stopped in there for lunch because, I was with Joel and the Hammy up there, and them guys, they make fast work out of walleyes. Look at that. And so just remember that when you're there, bring some extra something so your boat isn't bouncing around. But water is super high. Highest I've ever seen on Rainy. It's the highest I've ever seen just about everywhere. And even some of the rivers in our area, super high. I'm sure Black Duck River coming out of Black Duck's got to be up into the woods.
Yeah, I think just about all of our little rivers around are as full as they are. And I think there's a few extra fish swimming around in those rivers still, just because they haven't felt like leaving after the spawn. There's plenty of water in there.
Yeah. And so right now, if you could give people advice fishing in northern Minnesota, and just not even the lake, if they're going to go out there, because I keep hearing from people that they bombed, what are some advice and some tips that you could give to people, Carl, to help them catch fish?
Generally speaking, when I hear that people aren't catching fish, I usually think they're going too fast. When the bite's really hot in the middle of summer, you can catch fish at almost any speed and doing whatever. But if I'm with clients and all of a sudden they go a few casts, we're not catching any fish, the first thing I say is just try to slow down. Let your bait can almost be sitting on the bottom, and you're probably going to catch a fish. But if you're moving that thing a little too fast, or in one of those lethargic days, that water's still cold. We're talking surface temps when we're talking that stuff up above 50. So those fish sometimes can still be a little lethargic. And a lot of times I just say, try to slow down a little bit. It'll be the case with the walleyes. That's part of the reason guys are starting to do a little better with the, with your Minn Kota trolling motors having spot lock and stuff. People used to go out and anchor, and that's a great way to do it, but it just takes time to pull it up and do that.
Mhm.
Now you can anchor with your trolling motor, and I just kind of cruise along the side, looking for fish. As soon as we catch one, I pause in that spot, and usually where there's one, there's a bunch, and you stop in one spot and just slowly pitch out a jig and work it back to the boat. You're going to catch a bunch of them.
Oh, absolutely. And one thing I got to warn everybody out there: if you're going to Rainy, or we got a report here from Kabetogama Lake, watch out because the water's real high and there's debris. And I do know that some people have hit some logs out there. That it's not everywhere. It's all clean. You're not paying attention. And then there's a log just under the surface. And if the waves kick up, it's a very dangerous time to go high speed on lakes like that, because all that driftwood that's on shore is floating around. And so I've already known people just about getting knocked out of their boat flying along on a lake. So even docks out there floating. So I heard there was a fish house floating out there. And so
I saw a picture of that. I didn't read into the details, but I saw a picture of that floating around. It was
so
funny.
Be careful. You might end up inside a fish house if you're not careful. And so it's one of those years, but high water is always good. I think it makes more fish, more bait fish. And in our area, it's super good. Our lakes are super fertile. Black Duck's fertile. All the surrounding lakes are fertile. Bemidji. So it's just that much more that'll help the lake. And so as far as bait, do you think people starting out, Carl, in the area, would you start them out with bait, or would you put them onto some plastics? Or
I think baits are a little bit safer for most people. They're going to hold on a little longer. Those fish don't want to let go of that. They don't. That's not always the case with plastics. Plastics are getting way better, and I'm guessing both me and you, half the time when we're out there, we want to save our bait for our clients, and we're fishing plastics. I feel comfortable with plastics, and most of the time the clients start asking for them shortly later because you're catching so many fish with them that they want to use them too. But for most guys, I wouldn't ever want to go out without some bait because there are days when they won't bite on anything but a spot tail shiner, or maybe it's a night crawler, or maybe it's a leech, and I won't go out without having all of those in my boat.
Speaking of bait, I bought a bunch of crawlers when I went up sturgeon fishing on Rainy, and the sturgeon are just getting bigger and bigger. There we had a lot of 50 plusers to 60s, and the current is so fast that even 6 ounce weight minimum just to keep it down, keep your bait on the bottom up there. And we were actually putting double sinkers on in some spots, but I use spot lock, and I never seen another boat out there with spot lock. But I've got amped outdoor batteries in my boat. I got 2 36 volt, 50 amp hour batteries tied together. So I could hit spot lock, but I noticed it was hitting 8, 9. And when it hits 8 or 9, it's taking a lot of juice. But I put my kicker down and put it forward. So if you're ever anchored and you can't control, use a kicker if you have one. And I put that forward to get it down to like 5 or 6. But Amped Outdoors, I got to thank them for those batteries. They really, really hold you there. And even in super fast current, was able to sit anywhere. And the nice thing about spot lock, you press a button or you hit jog and you go to the next spot. In super fast current, the Minn Kota held me in. You're talking, I'm in a boat that's just like a few inches shy, 22 feet, in super fast current, super cool. Say, Sam, what are we giving away very, very, very soon?
So we're going to pick a winner here soon. Make sure to like, comment, and share the show, and you will get entered in to win the Bro Road Show mug and a bunch of Deep V and Deep V bucktail jigs. So like, comment, and share. We'll be picking a winner in a few minutes here.
Well, that's pretty cool. And now Carl has a crappie tournament coming up this next weekend, and it's kind of a fun local thing. But you see some big ones, and we don't need no lakes named or anything. But what kind of fish do you see? What does it take to win that?
Well, and it's there's some nice crappies in our area, and all of our lakes around have some big crappies. And typically, you're going to have some fish that average about 1.5 pounds. I've seen it on some years where they average 2 pounds.
Wow.
That's a 2-pounder is usually about as big as you'll see in most areas around. But remember, we got the big lakes like Red Lake and Leech, not very far away, and those lakes produce, Winnie. Those really big lakes produce 2-pounders. If a person gets on those lakes and hits in the right spot, at any one of those lakes, you can get on some really big crappies. Plus, we have lots and lots of little lakes where guys will go out, catch those eaters, those 12, 13 inchers. Sometimes those will be good enough if the bite isn't real good, or if the big ones have stopped. But there'll be some nice crappie, Scott.
Well, and in some areas, 12 to 13s are giant, so it just gives you an idea how big they are. Because
Yeah,
I mean, we were talking about that earlier on an episode. Actually, it was in the towards winter time. There's where people talk about getting 9 to 10 inch average. Well, so if 12 to 13 inch average on some lakes tells you what's in that lake. I mean, and they grow slow in northern Minnesota, so they're probably 2 or 3 times older than they are down south. I mean, they're talking 2 to 3 year old crappies at 12 inches. We're not that lucky, but if lakes get left alone, they grow, and we have a lot of left alone lakes. There's a lot of lakes in your area that don't have a boat on them all day.
well, we are, and there's lots of lakes, and that's part of the reason. There's still a lot of people out there, and you'll have a few lakes that are getting some pressure when people hear about it. But we have lots of lakes and lots of spots in all the lakes. Most of the time, there's plenty of room. We're still far enough away in a smaller area where you can get away from people and still find lots of fish. And part of that's because we do have those big lakes around. I mean, if that's where the majority of people still end up on a Winnie or a Cass or a Leech or a Red, and Lake of the Woods isn't very far away. You can make a day trip to Lake of the Woods from Black Duck real easy. So
You're right on the flyway to Lake of the Woods, Canada. A lot of people come through and buy stuff at your place for Canada to cross the border, and Canadians come down to buy stuff from you too. So
that's exactly true.
Traffic both ways. But I'm curious, freshwater shrimp. You always think Dakotas, North Dakota, South Dakota, but there's freshwater shrimp in the area, isn't there?
We have a lot of them. And I think that's why we have a lot of the big perch and some of the big bluegills. I think we probably have the biggest bluegills in the state hanging right around our area. It's real frequent. 10 to 12 inch bluegills are out there. I mean, we'll see a lot of them over 10, and some that hit 12, and some that that stuff that'll hit a true 2 pounds, which is a huge bluegill. And the reason they grow so big is our freshwater shrimp, and that's the reason we've had years in the past. We used to have a lot of the diver ducks that were coming and eating on those big freshwater shrimp, and I think there's maybe a few less. I don't know the reason. There's maybe not as many as there used to be, but you still see some freshwater shrimp on a lot of our lakes.
That's so interesting. You don't think of Minnesota for freshwater shrimp, but it's all about the water chemistry, the fertility, and all this stuff. But we're going to do a giveaway now, Sam. Hey,
Yes.
Do you have a winner for us?
Brooke just sent me the winner, and it is Jared Aslution. So congratulations.
All right.
Jared.
Hey, Jared, way
We'll
to
reach
go.
out
Thanks
to
for
you,
tuning in.
and get your shipping information for that Deep V kit and the Bro Roadshow mug. And yeah,
That's fantastic. And so anybody heading to Lake of the Woods, Red Lake, there's a bunch of places, but you got to make sure to swing into Timberline Sports and Black Duck, and you can see Carl. You can ask him for his autograph, but he probably won't sign it. He'll probably just show you something to buy there. But anyway, so you have crawlers in all different sizes, even big batches of crawlers. You got leeches and shiners, fatheads, fishing stuff. They can buy ammo if someone wants to buy ammo.
We
You
have lots
got
of ammo in stock, even
guns, handguns, rifles, all kinds of different tackle, and all of my sponsor stuff. You got all that stuff. You don't have AFCO yet, but I'm going to work on that. But definitely, because my hydronaut suit was nice when it rained on Rainy Lake. But it's good, a place to stop, and they'll give you sage advice when you come in there. So for a last minute tip, what would you recommend? Is there any crankbait bites or anything different that you would recommend, or as a going out thing here?
Well, I think we'll see a really, really good bite. Red Lake warms up fast, and usually once we get into June, the crankbait bite will probably be the fastest action there. And if the bite's good, you'll be able to catch them doing other things. If you want to slip bobber fish or if you want to jig fish, you'll be able to do it. But I think those new little rumblebees are going to be really, really hot on Red Lake this year.
We love
the shape and that right little wiggle that I think they're going to be an awesome bait this summer on when the water warms up on.
So fantastic. And Carl, you carry him at Timberline Sports. The Rumble Bugs, he's got piles of them. So stop in there and get them. And I appreciate you coming out, Carl. Sam Segola right there. And I want to thank everybody for tuning in. the whole season here, and this is our last show for a little while. We're going to come back later summer towards fall, and so I want to thank you for watching, and this will all be on my YouTube channel. But I also want to thank Carl Adams for being here, Josh Bullivant down in Leech Lake, of course, my co-host Sam for keeping things some law and order here, and Brooke, the producer, who keeps the show seamless. So we'll see you in the fall. Thanks for joining us. Good luck fishing.